The waiter had just set down our entrees when she said it. No warning. No build-up. Do you ever think we ended up with the wrong people? That was it. No dramatic pause. No nervous fidgeting. Just a casual question, like she was asking if I preferred sparkling water or still. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I was frozen, not out of anger, but confusion. I stared at her hands, perfectly manicured, slicing through her grilled salmon like nothing happened. Like she hadn't just lit a match and dropped it in the middle of the table. I could still hear the clink of cutlery from the tables around us. A birthday celebration behind me. Laughter. A candle and a cupcake. Somewhere, someone was singing off-key. But my head was screaming. I watched her swirl the wine in her glass, the one I ordered because I remembered it was her favorite. She took a sip, eyes scanning the restaurant lazily, not even checking to see how her words landed. My throat went dry. I looked down at my plate, the steak I'd been looking forward to all week. Now just a piece of meat sitting in a pool of shame and disbelief. I should have said something. Anything. Demanded context. Asked her what the hell that meant. But I didn't. Instead, I stood up. I pulled out my wallet, tossed a few bills on the table, and walked out. She didn't call after me. She didn't move. And I didn't stop walking. But here's what I didn't know as I stepped into the parking lot. That one sentence was only the beginning. I didn't go home. I couldn't. I drove around in circles for nearly an hour, ending up in the parking lot of a 24-hour pharmacy. I sat there in the dark, engine humming, fingers twitching on the steering wheel, trying to convince myself I'd misheard. Maybe she meant something else. Maybe it wasn't about me. But I kept replaying it in my head. Not just what she said, but how she said it. Like she'd said it before. That thought hit me so hard it made my stomach twist. What if she had? Not to me. To someone else. That's when I made the stupidest, or smartest, decision of the night. I went back. Not to talk. Not to apologize. I just needed to confirm what my gut was already screaming. Her car was still parked outside the restaurant, untouched. Good. That gave me a head start. I took the spare key from the undercarriage of my own car, drove home, and let myself into the house like a thief breaking into his own life. The living room was clean, too clean. The couch cushions were fluffed. The air smelled like the lavender spray she used only when she was expecting someone. I didn't know what I was looking for until I found it. Her laptop was gone. She always left it charging in the kitchen. I checked the bedroom, gone there too. But on her side of the bed, plugged into the wall, was her tablet. Unlocked. She'd never leave it unlocked. Never. I wish I could say I hesitated. That I respected her privacy. That I didn't go digging. But I did. I opened the messaging app, the one she used for work, but also, apparently, for other things. I didn't recognize the first name I saw, Benji, but the preview of the last message stopped my breath cold. You think he suspects anything? Grinning face with sweat. I tapped it. Benji, you think he suspects anything? Grinning face with sweat. Marnie, not even a little. He's still trying to win me back, LOL. Took me to that bistro again tonight. Benji, let me guess, you hit him with the line? Marnie, of course I did. Right after the wine. It was almost too easy. Benji, brutal. I love it. Marnie. He left without a word. You owe me dinner. I sat down slowly on the edge of the bed. My ears were ringing. Not from anger. Not yet. But from the sheer absurdity of it. She'd rehearsed it. They'd planned it. That one sentence wasn't a spontaneous thought. It was a script. A setup. And I fell right into it. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that Benji wasn't some mystery guy. It took one scroll through the rest of the conversation to see a photo she'd sent him, a selfie, taken from the passenger seat of a car I knew well. Because it was my brother's. There are moments in life where your brain just disconnects. Like a power outage in the middle of a thunderstorm. 1 second, you're functioning, rational, human. The next, you're just this hollow, humming shell trying to process the fact that your wife is sleeping with your brother. I stared at the photo for what felt like years. Her seatbelt ran diagonally across her chest. Her smile was casual, comfortable, intimate. The kind of smile people only give when they're with someone they know in a way you don't want to imagine. But the detail that burned itself into my memory forever? The reflection in her sunglasses. His face. Half lit, half shadow. Grinning. Benji. Benjamin Ross Granger. My little brother. The golden boy. The one Mom always called a charmer. The one who had somehow failed upwards his entire life, getting away with missed deadlines, skipped rent payments, and 2 DUIs without ever facing a real consequence. And now, apparently, the one who'd been rehearsing breakup lines with my wife behind my back. I don't remember getting up. I don't remember grabbing the tablet. I only remember the sound of the front door slamming behind me, and my hand shaking so badly, I almost dropped my keys trying to start the car. I should have called someone. A friend. My therapist. A hotline. Hell, a cab. But I didn't. I drove. His condo was only 15 minutes away, but I made it there in 10. The lights were on. Figures. He was probably inside, cracking open a beer, bragging about how easy it had been. How poor Elwood just stood up and left like a fool. I sat in the car, watching the building like a stalker, hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. I knew his unit. 3rd floor, front-facing. I knew where he kept his spare key. I knew he left his sliding balcony door open when it wasn't cold. I knew too much. And right then, all that knowledge felt like a loaded gun in my lap. I had no plan. No endgame. I just knew I couldn't go home. But before I could even open the car door, my phone lit up. Marnie. Calling. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. My first instinct was to let it ring. But some broken part of me, the same pathetic, spineless voice that always told me to give people the benefit of the doubt, whispered, "What if she's calling to confess? What if this is the moment she begs you to forgive her?" I answered. I didn't speak. She didn't hesitate. Her voice was calm, crisp, too calm. "Elwood," she said, "if you went through my tablet, I just want you to know you brought this on yourself. No apology, no denial, no shame, just that." She hung up before I could respond. And that's when I knew. This wasn't just betrayal. This was war. I didn't sleep that night. Not even close. I drove around until sunrise with no destination. Just this low, vibrating pressure building in my chest, like a scream trapped too deep to come out. At some point I ended up at a 24-hour diner off I-90, nursing a coffee that tasted like regret and watching condensation drip down the window like it was trying to escape, too. I kept hearing her voice in my head. "You brought this on yourself." It was surgical. No screaming. No guilt. She didn't even deny it. And that was what finally did it. Not the affair, not even that it was with my own brother, but the fact that in her eyes, I deserved it. Like I was some broken thing she'd tolerated for too long. And this betrayal was just her finishing the job. But the more I thought about it, the more one question refused to die. How long had they been doing this? Not just the texts. The emotional sabotage. The manipulation. Her coldness. Her random disappearances. It all started lining up in my head like pins on a murder board. There were patterns I'd ignored. Nights, she worked late. Weekends, she needed space. Even holidays where she'd suddenly felt sick and stayed behind while I visited my parents. God. Christmas. She stayed home sick on Christmas Eve and sent me with a tin of cookies for my mom. I bet she was with him. I bet she was laughing. I went home mid-morning. I expected her to be there. She wasn't. Just silence and the faint scent of her perfume in the hallway, like a ghost mocking me. I sat on the edge of the bed for a while, staring at the closet door, trying to convince myself not to do what I was about to do. But I did it anyway. I opened her jewelry box. Not out of spite, but curiosity. Marnie wasn't careless. She kept her secrets like she kept everything else, hidden behind zippers and velvet. But that day, she'd underestimated me. Taped under the lid of the box, tucked behind a felt divider, was a single folded receipt. Hotel Josephine. 3 weeks ago. 1 king suite. 2 guests. I stared at the date. It was the same weekend she told me she was visiting her mother for a wellness retreat. And then I noticed the name listed for the second guest. Benjamin Granger. She didn't even try to hide it. The rage didn't come like a fire. It came like a flood. Cold. Wide. Swallowing everything. And in that moment, something clicked inside me. Not revenge. Not yet. Clarity. If she thought I was weak. If she thought I'd just fade away like a gentleman. She didn't know me at all. So I started planning. Not to hurt her. To expose her. And the first step? I needed to talk to someone who hated my brother just as much as I did. His ex-girlfriend. I hadn't spoken to Nadine in over 2 years. The last time we were in the same room, she slapped my brother so hard, he dropped his beer and still tried to act like nothing happened. That was Benji, though, always pretending, always brushing things off, always finding a way to make himself the victim. Nadine didn't fall for it then, and I was counting on her not falling for it now. Finding her wasn't hard. Small town. People talk. She was still working at the local library, still driving that dented blue Honda with the Support Public Education bumper sticker. When I pulled into the parking lot and saw it parked sideways across two spots, classic Nadine, I took it as a sign. I didn't know how to start. What do you even say in a moment like that? Hey, remember the guy who emotionally wrecked you for a year and a half? Yeah, turns out he's banging my wife. But I didn't have to say much. She saw me standing by the information desk, eyebrows furrowed like she was debating whether to hit me or hug me. I must have looked like hell. I hadn't shaved. My shirt was inside out. I smelled like gasoline and old coffee. Elwood, she said cautiously. Are you okay? No, I said. But I think you might enjoy why. We sat in her office, some cramped little room that smelled like toner and ancient carpet glue, and I told her everything. I didn't hold back. I showed her the texts, the selfie, the hotel receipt. I watched her face shift from confusion to horror to something that looked dangerously close to satisfaction. When I was done, she sat back in her chair, arms crossed, nodding slowly. I always knew he was a piece of shit, she said, almost to herself. But this is next level. You think he's done this before? I asked, though I already knew the answer. She laughed bitterly. Oh honey, Benji never stops. I don't know if Marnie's the first married woman, but she sure as hell won't be the last. Then she leaned forward. But I've got something you'll want to see. She opened her desk drawer and pulled out a small red leather notebook. Pages dog-eared, binding cracked. I used to keep track, she said, of the lies, the girls, the times he said he was at the gym when he was actually meeting someone in a parking lot. I know it sounds insane, but I needed proof for myself. Otherwise, I'd keep falling for his garbage. She flipped to the back and scanned a page, then looked up at me, eyes narrowed. Hotel Josephine, huh? That's not the first time he's used that place. He took Megan there in 2021. And Cassidy. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if he's got a discount membership. She handed me the notebook. I didn't know what to say. You're giving me this? I'm loaning it, she corrected. And only because watching him burn is better than therapy. We talked for an hour. She gave me names, dates, even screenshots from her old phone she'd backed up to Google Drive, just in case he ever tried to gaslight me again. By the time I left that library, I had something better than revenge. I had receipts, and I wasn't going to waste them. The plan wasn't just to confront them. No, that would have been too easy, too emotional. I wanted them to feel it. But to do that, I needed an audience. And lucky for me, Marnie and Benji had already invited everyone I needed to the engagement party they didn't think I knew about. The invitation wasn't meant for me. It was meant for a mutual friend, some social parasite who probably just wanted free wine and photos for Instagram. But they sent it to me by accident, or maybe fate just finally got tired of being subtle. An email with floral borders, gold lettering, and two names I hadn't expected to see side by side, at least not formally. Benji Granger and Marnie Ellis. Celebrate their engagement. Saturday, 6 p.m., Hotel Josephine Ballroom. Hotel Josephine. They weren't even trying to be discreet anymore. At first, I laughed. Like, actually laughed. The kind of bitter, unhinged laugh that comes from the bottom of your gut when life hands you a script you couldn't make up if you tried. But then something strange happened. I stopped laughing. I leaned back in my chair, stared at that shimmering invitation, and felt a calm, eerie stillness take over. They wanted to host their happy little fairy tale where their affair had been born? Fine, I'd attend, but I wouldn't be arriving empty-handed. I spent 3 days preparing. Quietly, carefully, I scanned and organized every piece of evidence Nadine had given me. Dated messages, hotel confirmations, GPS data, social media timestamps. I even made a timeline. Color-coded. I printed copies, bound them, and then I made one final addition, a letter. Not to Marnie, not to Benji, to the guests. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cruel. It was factual, calm, unemotional. I laid out the details of their affair, the overlapping timelines, the betrayals, not just to me, but to everyone they pretended to love. I addressed it like a quiet warning. If they could lie to those closest to them, imagine what they'll do to you. Then I slipped each packet into an envelope, sealed them in red wax like wedding invitations, and packed them into a messenger bag. I arrived early, wore a navy suit Marnie had always liked, said it made me look like I finally had potential. I even got a haircut, clean-shaven, crisp, the picture of the well-adjusted ex. The ballroom was disgusting. All gold trim and white roses, like a bridal Pinterest board vomited onto a credit card. People were milling around, plastic flutes of champagne in hand, laughing politely, waiting to be fed and flattered. I slipped through the crowd quietly, placing envelopes at each table, tucked beneath the chargers. The kind of thing no one notices until it's time to sit down. I was nearly done when I heard it. Her voice. My name. Elwood. I turned. Marnie stood there in a deep green dress, the color she used to wear when she wanted me to lose my train of thought. But her face didn't show surprise. Not real surprise. Her eyes flicked to the bag at my side. You weren't invited, she said, like it was a fact. Like I was some stranger off the street who'd ruined her dinner plans. Funny, I said. Neither was Benji. To my marriage. She stepped forward slightly, lips tight. If you're here to cause a scene. I cut her off. Marnie, if I wanted to cause a scene, I would have walked in during your little toast. She paused. I could see it. The doubt creeping in. She scanned the room, eyes moving faster now. Her mouth opened like she was about to say something, but before she could, a familiar voice boomed over the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention. Benji, up at the front, holding a glass of champagne like he was accepting a Lifetime Achievement Award for betrayal. I just want to say how lucky I am to be standing here tonight with the love of my life. I didn't stay for the rest. I walked out before the first envelope was opened, before the first gasp, before the silence fell like a guillotine, because the truth didn't need me to perform it. It only needed a moment to be seen. I didn't go home after I left the hotel. I didn't even have a destination in mind. I just drove, one turn after another, until I found myself parked outside the same diner I'd spiraled in a week earlier. The one with the stale coffee and sad jukebox playing songs no one asked for. Except this time, I didn't feel like a ghost. I felt awake, present, like I just surfaced from deep underwater and taken my first real breath in months. I didn't regret it. Not the envelopes. Not the timing. Not even walking out before I could see the explosion. That was never the point. I didn't need revenge confetti. I needed them to feel what I felt for months, that gnawing discomfort of being seen. And now they had nowhere to hide. I ordered coffee, opened my laptop, and waited. It didn't take long. The first text came before the waitress even brought the cream. Unknown number. You are an absolute psycho. I stared at the message. No name, but I didn't need one. That kind of tone had Benji's cologne all over it. I didn't respond. Just muted the number. Next came the email. From Marnie. Subject line. You crossed a line. No greeting. No explanation. Just one long paragraph about disrespect and public embarrassment and how I had weaponized perception against her. As if perception was something I had invented. As if truth was optional. But beneath the fury, there was something else. Panic. I saw it in the way she mentioned clients and reputation and defamation. I knew her law firm had strict morality clauses. She'd made partner recently. I remembered because she threw a party for herself and didn't invite me. And now? Now her coworkers had all received an unfiltered glimpse into the woman behind the courtroom smile. I closed the email. By midnight, the fallout started bleeding into social media. First, it was just whispers, subtle Facebook comments from extended family members. One aunt posted a vague Bible verse. Someone else shared a quote about wolves in sheep's clothing. But by morning, the story had grown teeth. A mutual friend texted me a screenshot of a private group chat Marnie was in. Apparently, she'd gone into full damage control mode, claiming I had fabricated everything, that the screenshots were fake, the hotel receipts doctored. She called me unstable, obsessive, said I'd never gotten over her, and this was my final act of desperation. But then, someone replied with a photo, a group selfie, taken in the hotel lobby. Marnie and Benji, clear as day, smiling in the background, unaware they'd photobombed their own alibi. I didn't post it. I didn't have to. The person who did? Nadine. That's when it turned. The silence from Benji's side of the family was deafening. My mother, who once defended him like a religion, texted me one word. Sorry. That alone nearly made me drop the phone. But what I didn't expect was Cassidy. She was a name Nadine mentioned in her notebook, one of Benji's many former flames. She slid into my DMs like a ghost from another timeline. Cassidy. I've been waiting for someone to take him down for years. If you ever want the full story, I've got the receipts too. And just like that, The skeletons started lining up at my door, one after the other, dragging years of secrets behind them. Turns out, exposing Benji and Marnie wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something much, much bigger. 2 weeks passed, long enough for the rage to settle into silence. Long enough for the internet to move on. Long enough for the texts to stop coming. The threats, the apologies, the attempts to reframe the truth. They all faded into background noise, like static from a dead radio station. Benji disappeared first, deleted his socials, went off-grid. Rumor had it he moved in with a college buddy out of state. No one said it, but everyone knew. He was hiding. Not just from me. From the mess he helped make. Marnie tried to hold her ground. She made a long post, polished, PR slick, dressed in legal disclaimers and vague accusations. But the comments didn't go her way. People remember patterns. And Marnie had left too many behind. One by one, her likes turned to questions, her allies went quiet, and her glow dimmed to flicker. I didn't celebrate. There was no party. No victory lap. I just moved on. It started small. I cleaned out the closet. Gave away the dishes she picked. Tossed the wine glasses we never used. I stopped listening to sad playlists. I canceled the couple's therapy I had scheduled, just in case she ever decided to work things out. She didn't. Then I did something that surprised even me. I took a trip. Now, I know that sounds cliche. Guy gets cheated on, runs off to find himself. But this wasn't about finding anything. It was about letting go of everything. I booked a cabin up north, one with no Wi-Fi, no reception, and no one asking how I was holding up. For the first time in years, I slept without waking up in a cold sweat. I read books without checking my phone. I sat by the lake in complete silence and didn't feel lonely. I felt whole. On my third night there, it snowed. The heavy, quiet kind that muffles everything. I stepped outside, coffee in hand, wrapped in a blanket that smelled like cedar and smoke. And I just watched it fall. No thoughts. No wait. No what-ifs. Just peace. I didn't need closure. I didn't want revenge. I didn't even want an apology anymore. I just wanted myself back. And somehow, against all odds, I found him, buried beneath all the noise, quietly waiting. When I came home, I started fresh. I took a new job. Smaller firm, better people. I adopted a dog, a weird little mutt with one floppy ear and a bark like a squeaky toy. Named him Radar. He follows me everywhere. And one Saturday morning, while walking Radar through the farmer's market, I met someone. No grand gestures. No flirting. Just a woman in a red coat who smiled at my dog, asked his name, and laughed when he peed on her boot. We talked. And then we kept talking. I don't know where it'll go. I'm not rushing. But for the first time in years, I'm not looking over my shoulder. I'm not bracing for betrayal. I'm not trying to be what someone else wants me to be. I'm just me. And it's enough.